What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Delicate Plan Podcast. I'm your channel host, Primitive, and as always, I have Dante here with me. How you doing, Dante?
I am good. How you doing, Prim?
I am doing great. This past week has been not necessarily busy, but filled because I've been playing so much Digimon. I've probably streamed more this past week or past like 10 days than I did the whole second half of 2021. Just grinding for nationals, play
Ooh.
testing, getting it ready. And so, I got a lot of thoughts going on regarding the Digimon world.
Oh man, yeah. I took a little bit of a break, took a little bit of hiatus. With that being said, I heard there was some crazy things going on with the meta just over the last week.
Yeah,
What do you know about that?
like I said, I've been playing a bunch, and I have been seeing some metagame shifts going into EX1 that I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't 100% expecting. Some things I did expect, some things I didn't expect. I think the biggest one to start off with is gonna be security control is hurting right now. It's hurting. A lot of people were playing security control to beat the Gabubon lists, and as of right now, I think a lot of the Gabubon players are just kind of learning how to beat it in general. You can leave them at 4 security, so that way their cards like Magnadramon and Salamon are shut down, so that way they don't get all that extra recovery, and then you can just build up into the hybrids with your tamers and just go in for like a 4 or 5 hybrid turn where you just win. Jesmon and Three Musketeers have a fantastic new tool in EX1 called Emergency Program Shutdown, which is a 3 cost white option, which makes it so your opponent can't play options next turn, or if it comes out of security, it adds to your hand and it makes it so your opponent can't play options for the rest of that turn. And this is really big because when you're playing Jesmon, you already have a really good matchup versus the security control because you're playing Delicate Plan and you're going to be able to swing for 2, 3 checks, unsuspend, swing for another 2 or 3 checks, go into Omnimon or Agunimon for game. And so the security control players had to play like Sakuyamon, so that way you would have to promote your Jesmon to get around the security attack -3, which leave your Jesmon open to be deleted by an option card like Iron Fisted Onslaught or Wyvern's Breath. As to where now you can just promote that, play Judgment of the Blade, get rid of that Sakuyamon, play a Sistermon, and then you play the emergency program shutdown because you already have all kinds of white cards in the Sistermons. You don't need to play any Tamers. You play emergency program shutdown. The security control player can't play any option cards, and so how are they going to get rid of this Jesmon going into the next turn? They can't. So you pass it back. Jesmon hits that Delicate Plan, swings multiple checks, and the game's over. I have been testing it. It feels super oppressive, and in my opinion, I see Jesmon being the most represented deck at Nationals. And when Jesmon is already doing this good versus Security Control, and the deck that people are playing Security Control being Gabubond starting to improve versus the matchup, I see Security Control hurting.
Oh man, yeah. Security Control was one of those decks that we was talking about just a week ago. Top three easily over here in TCG, but it seeming like a lot of people, especially when EXO1 comes out, they are looking over to Europe and the OCG and like, how do we stop Security Control? Why was the Security Control players in the OCG not effective when it comes to playing Security Control versus here? And I think a lot of people are starting to figure it out, especially in the EU. They already got yet. So one, they're figuring everything out. They're seeing that, oh, where's our worst matchup? Hey, Justmon's worst matchup is Security Control. You pop that Justmon, there's nothing really they can do. Now that they're taking in Analog Youth or Analog Boy, and they're taking in the emergency shutdown program, like what can you do? Like when it comes to Security Control, 2/3 of their deck is option cards. So with 1 3 costs, you're literally shutting down their entire turn. They can only go and play a digit, and this is not to say that, well, they don't have a Digimon to play. Well, they just have a handful of option cards. You're basically shutting down the entire turn. So I really think that, yeah, you're right. Jesmon might be the most represented deck going to nationals, but I still think, going back to last week, my Dark Horse and Greymon Tribal just might make some rumblings coming nationals.
I have to agree. I've already thought Greymon Tribal was pretty good. That's why I didn't really put it as my Gray Horse, because it's been a deck that's been going around. People have been asking me on stream, what do I think Gabumon worst matchup is? And a lot of people are going to expect me to say something like Security Control, which I just don't think that's true. I think the hybrids are so oppressive in that matchup that you really just have to draw really, really bad for you to be in that bad of a position, especially in a best of 3 scenario. So I usually say the Greymon Tribal Agumon stuff, just because you're able to get so aggressive so early, especially with the EX1, because you already have the promo Greymon, which you can Digivolve for 2 and raising on turn 1, promote, and then if you have an Agumon underneath, which you pretty much always will, you'll be able to swing 2 checks at 7, 8k. And that's going to be very effective, especially versus Gabumon, because they have very little cards that are actually going to be able to kill that in raising, and so you'll have to actually like Digivolve something and then swing over it on your next turn, just so that they don't get those extra 2 swings in, and that doesn't always happen. And so if you don't, that deck can be very aggressive. You also have the EX1 Skull Greymon, which has Security Attack +1 as an ultimate, and then when it dies, you get to play a Suspended Agumon, which you can combo some cute stuff with. You have the promo Agumon that has the on-play delete a 3k or less, or you have the Tamer Searcher Agumon, and you can pair those with it, but it's mostly just the being able to go for big swings early against decks like Gabumon and Jessamon is very, very impactful, because Gabumon, if they don't get like Kendo Garurumon, or they don't go into Bond early, it's going to be very hard for them to get rid of a lot of your stuff. The Ice Wall obviously is going to be their biggest defense, because any deck that's going to be aggressive is going to be weak to Ice Wall. But if you don't have if you have even a half bad hand, those type of decks can really get you, and especially Jessamon. Jessamon has to build up and raising a lot to get to its end game, and so if you start to go in early and they can't answer that, you're going to be able to get that aggression fast. And then if you count in the Agumon in that as well, you can get those 2 early checks in early, and then you go into BT6 Agu, you promote, you go into Bond, you swing, you trash the top security, swing 2 checks, now your opponent has no security. If you can go into a Goonimon, or you can just threaten to go in next turn, and so it's just those type of decks are very aggressive, and I think that's why I've been seeing such an influx of the Agumon, is just because of the pure fast aggression with the little commitment that you really need.
Yeah, oh man, I really do think that going forward, everybody's hyped up on Jessamon, but I really do think going forward, you might see a lot more Greymon Tribal, a lot more Agumon. You're gonna see a lot more people really just looking to this deck because of its aggression and versatility while being aggressive at the same exact time. You don't really have to build, too high. You can also start building wide, or start setting up combo pieces to where if you pull something out of raising that's huge, like a War Greymon or an Ancient Greymon or something like that, then you can really do some damage after that. So that is still gonna be my pick as a dark horse for nationals. But from just a little information I got before the show, Lilith Loop is a thing in the EU. How?
I mean, as much as I hate to say it, because I'm not a big fan of playing against Lilith Loop, because it's like a Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Your opponent's got so many interactions going on that it's like a 10-minute turn. But the thing is like going back into it, aggression is very, very powerful right now. Being able to have turns where you're able to go for big swings consistently is very, very big, and Lilith be doing that. The new
Yeah.
Ginkaku promote package is very big. We have now another option card. I am forgetting the name of it, but it works like Underworld's Call, where you're able to bring back a level 4, and then it has a second effect if you have a Myotismon. But things like Underworld's Call and that option card, they are making it so you can bring back Ginkaku promotes, and then go into the you put the Ginkaku underneath, you gain a memory, draw a card, and then you swing, and if it goes down, you go into it. You have the MDF combo, where you Mega Digimon Fusion up into Zwart.
Hmm.
You swing, you bring the Lilith Loop back, you bring back even 2 more Ginkaku promotes, or you can bring back an ultimate and then go back into Lilith and then keep the Lilith combo going. There's just so much aggression, and it's actually got a semi-decent matchup versus the Gabumon in my experience, because of I would say the biggest thing is, one, Gazimon is nice. Gazimon's cool, but it's not the biggest thing. The biggest thing is actually, I think, the Kinkaku Inheritable, of where you're able to discard a card to delete a level 3. I mean, it is so annoying because as a Bond player, one of your biggest things that you can do versus Lilith is play Madoki Betamon, so that way they can't play their Jack raids, they can't gain memory from Kinkaku or like Soundbirdmon, stuff like that. But if they can just delete it by swinging and trashing a card, which they want to do anyway, because whenever they trash a card, they're going to gain a memory and like draw two cards and all this crazy stuff. It's just good. I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a favored matchup versus Bond because I have played a decent amount, and if you are able just to get those one or two early checks and then promote with a BT6 Gabu into Bond, you can just get there. But the thing is if you have a semi-slow hand, Lilith Loop is going to start popping off on you, going to be able to delete all your stuff, be able to go in for 3-4 swings a turn, cycle their loops. The Zwart Defeat will be able to pop blockers or anything that you got on there. There's just a lot of aggression, and it's not even just Loop, just general purple decks in general are starting to pop up a lot more Tidamon because you can bring back the Ginkakus. I've been seeing a lot of Metal Garurumon with the purple Metal Garurumon where you Digiburst 2 to play an option card. That card's insane because you can get 4 Digivolution sources underneath it, and then you can pop 2, or you can Digiburst 2, play Kinkaku, or Kinkaku Promote, swing, it dies, you bring it back, you swing again, you go into Zwart with Mega Digimon Fusion, you bring the stuff back with whatever mega that you need. It's very, very, very aggressive and very powerful. And I think since security control is kind of hurting right now, like we said before, these decks where you're just kind of going in to swing a million checks a turn are going to be more powerful because there's not as many things to punish it.
Now, okay, and just for everybody who is listening, the option card that Prim was talking about is called "Fight for Your Pride." It works
Yeah.
just
Yep.
like Underworld's Calling. Yeah, I do think that maybe with the downfall or the decline of security control, because security control was one on matchups that in purple you really didn't want to face against security control because
Yeah.
they can outgrind you because they can just deck you out. Now that with security control being gone, we may be seeing a resurgence of Titanmon, Livemon being, one of the better decks, especially with the, promote package. Nobody said it was bad. It was always good. It lost very, very heavily to security control. Just ramming your head into security doesn't really favor you if they can wipe your board or if they can just make it to where you're never going to get past 2 3 security well as much recovery as they have. Now I know in the EU they're working with EXO1. Analog Boy is probably one of those things to where they're playing, it just helps with the consistency of it. It's a lot of white and purple support that they may be playing that we don't have. But it's funny that I know I was talking about this last week that there are blue cards, level threes, that stop you from gaining memory. The Gazi Mons, the Terrier Mons. I think four different colors have these type of cards. And the thing about the Genkakumon, Kenkakumon, and the promote package, like you said, you can attack top of level 3 before your live loop even goes off. So you have to get aggressive first and then live loop for game.
Yeah.
Instead of a lot of people wanting to get to their loop immediately and then want to loop from there and not and not clearing out the problematic cards to begin with. So I think a lot of players are starting to adapt to this new memory starving or memory blocking type of Digimon that we see in these main boards, or should I say in the main decks, since we don't have sideboards yet. And I see they're starting to really adapt, and that's a very good thing, especially if you want to go to a nationals with a very very diverse nationals format. Like you said, I mean, you can go, it's kind of like a 50-50 matchup when it comes, well, honestly, I could say 60-40 in favor of Bond when it comes to Bond and Purple. Just because, Littlefmon needs a little bit of time to set up, but if the Bond player even stalls for one and maybe 2 different turns, then that Live Loop player can actually explode, and now the game is all about a toss up.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken as well, that Lilith Loop, so I guess I should mention this because we talked about this a little bit before the podcast, but just yesterday, actually, being Saturday the 8th, there was a tournament that went on that was EX1 legal where the first place deck actually was Lilith Loop. It was somebody who is in my Discord. They even came into my stream and they were nice enough to post the deck list in my Discord. But if I'm not mistaken, they were playing Mastamon in that list, which, when you consider Mastamon, that's a fantastic tech versus security control
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to be able to trash a security, meaning that whatever comes out can't activate, whether that's a Tamer, whether that's a Zwart, whether that's an option card. And then you bring back another Kinkaku. It's another card where that promote package can come back out and you can get essentially extra checks. You can MDF up into Zwart defeat from there, bring the Mastamon back, so that way next turn you can do it again, or you can bring back a an ultimate from the Zwart and then just go straight into another Mastamon, go back into the Ginkaku promote. These are going to keep giving you memory because every time you put the Kinkaku and Ginkaku underneath the promote, you get to gain a memory, draw a card. It's got a lot of tools. So even though it does do bad versus security control, I think you are kind of able to tech for it to a degree, just by having the Mastamons with a small little tech. And then another thing too is with these Lilith packages that we got from BT6, and I guess it's just the purple decks in general, that I think a lot of people are starting to catch on to is I can't be the only one who thinks that Jesmon's going to be the most represented. A lot of people complain about Ice Wall, but nobody's playing Gabumon, everybody's playing Jesmon, and so there's going to be a lot of Jesmons. And the thing is with purple now, you have Rebellimon, which is going to give you blocker
Mm-hmm.
retaliation. So if they want to swing in with the if they want to swing with that Jesmon, it's going to die before it gets checks in. But it also, you have that Skull Greymon. So when you trash that, you can
Mm-hmm.
put that underneath a blocker and just have an indefinite blocker with retaliation to go. That's going to be very, very powerful into the Jesmon package. So I think I purple's always been around, right? And in
Yeah.
BT5 we saw Lilith around, but the most common thing that was said about it is that it's just very bricky. If you're gonna play Lilith Loop, you essentially just have to draw the nuts multiple times for like a 7-8 round tournament at a regional, and it just wasn't really realistic. But going into BT6 and EX1, there's so many more consistency cards that come out now that give you more draws. I mean, just the Sunamon egg itself, where you trash one and you draw one. I've seen so many times playing against purple players where they have two Digimon out, both of them are Sumamon eggs, and they trash one card, draw two off of those, and then you
Mm-hmm.
get other draw sources from things like the Ginkakumon inheritable, and whenever you play that. So there's just way more consistency in the list, and so I think whenever you have this deck, which was Lilith Loop, which a lot of people used to say it's that deck where if your opponent doesn't get the curve, they lose, but if they get it, they win like every matchup, and I think that's kind of maybe not 100% true anymore, just because we do have very powerful decks in Jesmon, which might have a little bit higher of a ceiling, or Bond, which might just be able to be a little bit quicker. But the fact is, if you can get that loop going, you have a very, very high chance of winning that game. And so I think that's one of the reasons why it's coming back so big, is the fact that in this new set, we just have a lot more consistency in the deck in general, just because there's way more draw. Another thing that's really big is people are playing the Manoa Tamer, because it's a
Yeah.
white tamer that's a memory tamer, so you can have a memory tamer that always keeps your MDF live. And so there's a lot of things that Lilith got that I think it kind of makes sense that we are seeing a resurgence in it.
Yeah. I mean, you know me as a perfect player. I love to hear these things. I I I think just Live Loop is one of the things to where if somebody can break it, it will be a busted deck. Just being able to and there's so many options out there. Like, you got the new Skull Greymon, like you were saying, out of EXO1, the +1 security, just like for tribal, but you can also put it up in there. Anything up in EXO1 in purple, most of them has retaliation. You can even go as far as teching in, maybe one Ogremon to push for +1 security on a smaller Digimon, seeing if you can get through one or two checks, those kind of things. It's one of the things to where purple just it has all the tools. It just needed the, like you said, the consistency of it. It needed to come together. And I think there's a lot of things that EXO1 that you can piece out of the set, and it's just gonna make it that much massive.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, are we gonna see, possibly a lot of these security control players possibly move over to Lord Nightmon security control? or I know a couple people that was actually testing Lord Nightmon security control and going with a more pure yellow black, cutting the core Digimons out and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And that way they'd be more Digimon heavy to deal with these kind of matches. What do you think?
Um, I mean, I've seen a lot of different security control styles being played in the past like week or so, but I mean, I think one of the biggest things that you need is just security Digimon in general, just playing like four Cordramon, four Geo Greymons, and then you just have to play like a kind of aggressive style security control. But if I'm going to be completely honest, and I can see this because, I mean, we got some security control players who are security control diehards in just our local scene, right?
Hmm.
And there's two main ones, and both of those players have both told me that they do not want to play security control for nationals because they feel that it is it. I mean, our boy John is a security control tryhard, and he said to me at our last local, I can't bring this to nationals because I have no chance of winning. I can't beat Jessmon, blah 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 blah, right? And so
Ooh,
yeah, and that's coming from the guy who plays like no other decks, and
yeah, he's been
both
set one.
yeah, and both of them, both of our main security control players who are moving away from security control for nationals, or I guess our two security control players that are qualified for nationals, I should say, going into nationals, they're actually moving towards Three Musketeers, as it's
Oh,
generally a similar style of deck, right? Because you still have a lot of options coming out of security. You still have a lot of this stuff, but you have a more react or proactive gameplay. You in those decks you can play rookies, you can play champions, you can play your megas and do things, and instead of your megas just costing like 12 to hard play and that's it, Beelstar can cost 5, and then you can play Nailbone or you can play Gvelschformer or anything like that. And so I think for the people who are security control like purists who want to play that style of deck, I think if they end up switching off, they're probably going to look more towards Three Musketeers, just because it's Three Musketeers is probably up there in like my top three, maybe fourth decks that I would expect for nationals. It's very powerful. Getting the Analog Boy helps that deck out a lot. Being able to have the emergency program shutdown is also fantastic. And we've already seen people playing the blue package in Three Musketeers. They'll be playing the Sorajo Tamer, and then they also play Kaitis Breath as a 7-drop that they can use to reduce their Beelstar, but also just has good things versus like Bond of Friendship, because the only thing that can delete Bond of Friendship is Trump Sword. And so it's
mhm.
like you get all these various things. And so I've even seen people playing Three Musketeers with that blue package, teching in a couple Ice Walls just for general defense versus Jessmon. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you could go about Three Musketeers and that Beelstar package that you can kind of build it, because it's a control deck that's also slightly mid-range, because you can play various things. You got the Rebellimons, you got the on-play Ogremons, you have a lot of rookies that get your stuff down, like the Impmons, Labramon, Soundbirdmon, all these cards that can really kind of be a little bit more proactive, but still have that general control-y style of gameplay. And I think they're going to go towards Three Musketeers.
Yeah, that might be the. Yeah, I can see why you think that's the better one of the two. It's for the ability to just dip into we all know that purple has some of the craziest destruction cards, in the
Mm-hmm.
entire scene. And being able to, play it and recur them back and then play it again, recur them back, throwing things, maybe a couple level threes. Like, oh, I cannot take, but it's a level three Digimon on play. You add a one cost or a seven cost option card back to your
Yeah,
hand.
you're thinking
It's
Dracmon.
yeah, yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, it has so much, recurring out the trash when it comes to purple inherently. I think that it's going to be, the consistency factor that a lot of security control players, are urging for when it comes to, black yellow security control.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's going to be one of the things where they're going to need the Digimon to really shine in the
Yeah.
matchup against Justmon, especially when EX1 come out. And with that being said, do you see, any type of, green deck, maybe green OTK? maybe just a green Digiburst deck. You see any of those making top 32?
Um, I mean that's gonna be hard to say because it's green isn't non-existent, right? If we
Right.
look back to oh man, what tournament was I playing? I think it was a Gaia Force Gaming tournament. I could be wrong, but I was playing an online tournament, and Max Tapera, another content creator, was in there. Did make it to the finals with a green deck. Um, and so, I mean, it definitely works. Like, you can play a green deck, but I think it's going to be very matchup dependent. And, like, in this big of a field of players at Nationals, you're going to have to kind of play matchup roulette with green, where if you hit a
Hmm.
bad matchup, then it's green does not have the power that a lot of other colors have, and not as much comeback potential. So if you hit a bad matchup, I feel like you're going to be in a bad spot. But the thing is green has been doing, there has been like in a lot of tournaments where one maybe two green decks are popping up in top 8 or so. There's a lot of people who are green purists who really just want to play green, and so there's definitely going to be green decks submitted. Are they going to make top cut? I really think that's going to be kind of matchup dependent. It's going to depend on how the metagame turns out. I don't really play green OTK or anything like that. I think green OTK is really the only main deck that can make it. I don't think the Nidhogg Ancient Troymon's really going to be able to do it. It doesn't really do that good versus the Jesmon and stuff like that as people think, or like Agubond, especially Agubond, because you can just go into the hybrids. You don't have to worry about it suspending. So I think green OTK is going to be the Lord and Savior for green here, but I don't know if it's strong enough to make it. Just because since I don't play it myself, like I don't know how this deck matches up against Lilith Loop. You know, I don't know how it does against versus Titamon if we want to talk about the purple decks. So what if those are bad matchups and those become more popular? Then is it going to be good? I mean, it probably doesn't have that good of a matchup versus Bond of Friendship in general. And then
Hmm.
playing Ice Wall is like when Ice Wall enters the scene, it's definitely not going to get better because if you're going to
Ooh,
go
yeah.
for OTK where you're trying to swing multiple checks, Ice Wall, baby, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, just looking through the cards now. Yeah, it has the hybrids like, Bond does. It has all the tools. But the gimmick of green, being able to suspend their Digimon, pierce over, multiple chats, all that it's not fast enough. I don't see it being that fast. Um, yeah, I don't think green. I mean, I could be wrong. Don't get me wrong. It
Hmm.
could be wrong. It could be some, Hercules competition, all their matchups, lose a couple of games and make it into like the 31st spot with tiebreakers or something like that. But I think Lord Nightmon might be a thing, but if Ice Wall is going to be a card, I think that's the only thing about Lord Nightmon is that when you swing to prop another Digimon on board, you're losing to memory, and that would actually limit just the consistency that Nightmon can give you putting 3, 4 Digimon on board in
Hmm.
one turn before ending your turn. But yeah, I think we may see, you know, a decline in security control, like you said, a resurgence in Live Loop and Three Musketeers. People love that Three Musketeers. They just love it. I
Oh
see
yeah,
it all the time.
everywhere.
Yeah,
That's why I
Jesmon's
say
gonna
I
be
got
highly
it. My
represented.
top three is just there's it's that deck, and the thing about Three Musketeers is it can beat Jesmon, so it's like it's got to be up there.
Yeah, definitely. It's 100% gotta be up there. I still am holding out. I really do think that Greymon Tribal is gonna be probably the better of the two with Jesmon. I think a lot of people are just more comfortable with Jesmon, but in certain matches when you have to build your Jesmon up, like Jesmon builds bricks,
Oh, it's
like a
building houses, baby.
lot.
I mean, there's a
Yeah.
reason why there's a meme in my stream called the Jesmon brick counter. All right, whenever Jesmon comes
Yep.
on board, people ask me to bring out the Jesmon brick counter and see how many games is Jesmon gonna brick.
Oh man, yeah, yeah. I've been in half those streams too. I'm just like, wow, they just cannot high roll just to save them. But and that's because it's best 2 out of 3.
Hmm.
If it was best of one, you can high roll. I see why the OCG is like, hey, this is the best deck. Maybe Bumble, this is the best deck because it's so high rolling. But in best 2 out of 3, RNG plays a factor. The longer the tournament, the longer the game goes, RNG plays a factor. And when that is the case, like I said last week, when that's the case, then Jessamine loses when it comes to RNG, especially against security control. But now that when ESO1 comes out and is legal, security control is just going to just fall off. So a lot of Jessamine players won't have to deal with their worst matchup. So now it's all about who's going to get the perfect favorable matchups throughout the tournament,
Yeah.
since there's not really going to be this anti-meta of a presence and security control.
And I mean, one thing we got to talk about, because this is something that I've talked to people about, and I don't know what other meta people are playing in, but I've been playing a ridiculous amount of Digimon. I'm in like a bunch of other Discords that have really good players that I'm playtesting against, watching them play, and there's not a lot of people playing Bond of Friendship compared to what people think there are people playing Bond of Friendship as far as the like upper echelon of like skilled players, I guess. And then in my experience, I think that security control is probably like, as far as statistically, probably your worst matchup. And so if you take security control out of the out of like the thing, I really only think you have positive matchups with like these aggressive decks like the Greymon Tribal Agumon stuff being probably up there and maybe the 35 to 40% win rate. But it's like Gabubond, if security control goes away, is pretty much favored in almost every single matchup. And so I expect that if there's going to be a large surge of Jesmon players, which I'm taking this because I've seen so many people play Jesmon. That Jesmon is in like probably one of the highest represented decks in online tournaments right now. It wins tournaments all the time, so people are playing. Even more people are playing Jesmon. There's gonna be a lot of Jesmon players, but I see the people who come in with the Gabumon probably gonna be able to make it up there into the top cut at a higher consistency rate, just because I think that they have at least like at worst a 50% win rate in like every matchup. Like and at worst,
Ice
you know
Wall's
what
a
I'm saying?
card.
Yeah,
Ice Wall's a card.
Ice Wall is a card, and that's the thing I said earlier. There's a lot of people who come into my streams complaining about Ice Wall, saying Ice Wall, blah 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 blah. But I mean, I've played the past 10 days. I've played literally probably like close to 100 hours of Digimon, right?
Yeah.
And including tournaments, including EX1 practice, all this stuff, and I've played like one Bond of Friendship mirror match and like a million Jesmon. Like almost every round is Jesmon, Three Musketeers, right? And so it's like when people bring in this deck because they have these really high ceilings. So if you like draw what you need to draw, you're gonna win, and that's why people I think are drawn towards Jesmon, especially people who are like analytical with data. They see Jesmon top cutting and winning a lot, so they want to play Jesmon, blah 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 blah. But I mean, I played the matchup so much, and Bond just does very, very good versus Jesmon. In BT6, I was having some troubles playing Jesmon because I was trying out a more like full rookie rush style deck where I was playing like 20 rookies, blah, 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 blah. And that style didn't end up working. And so for the past couple days, I've been changing it up a little bit. And ever since then, I mean, my win rate versus Jesmon is like in the 90s because it's just you just are so fast. If you hit a Gabu into Mat turn 1, you just have such a high chance of winning because on like turn 3 you can go into Bond and get those checks and all this stuff. And so it's like when we look at what decks and matchups and stuff are going to go in with Jesmon being the highest one, I think Jesmon players need to worry about their mirror match more than anything. I was talking to Chris about this because he's considering playing this. I'm just like, yeah, we're playing a lot of Jesmon v Bond because you want to figure out this matchup, figure out how to beat it. But when you're teching this hard for Bond, are you just worsening your other matchups? Can you beat the mirror match when you're playing all these cards that are specifically meant to beat Gabu Bond? Can you beat these Lilith loops? Can you beat Three Musketeers with all these things? It's with the metagame how it is now, especially with all these new decks, well, new in quotations, like Lilith Loop and stuff, the decks that are kind of starting to resurge into the top 5, 6, 7 archetypes in the metagame, it's going to be really hard to prepare for everything. And so I think when it's going into Nationals, deck choice is going to be very, very huge, out more so than the individual tech choices in the decks. just because of
Yeah,
like I say, Bond. I think you have like at worst a 50% win rate against other decks, so it's like Bond is a very safe bet. Jesmon, if you draw what you need, you have like an 100% win rate versus most of the decks. But also, what is Jesmon known for? Bricking. So it's like, do you
breaking.
really want to go into a 9 round tournament with a deck that is known throughout the entire community as like a brick, like literally like the meme is that it bricks houses, like builds houses.
Yeah, like it's funny. It feels like monarchs to me. It's like if it goes off, it goes off. You can't do nothing about it. But a lot of times it's just gonna make itself a house, probably make itself a nice little mansion, and they're gonna sit there and just get old too and too old. But yeah, just my I yeah, I agree. I think just mine's gonna be highly represented. Um, and the thing about it is, I don't think just my players play that many tamers, right? They don't play with what, three
Two.
tamers?
A lot of lists are playing two, which is
Two
another thing
tamers.
about it. I mean, I'm playing versus Jesmon, and the thing is, it's like, okay, I'm gonna put you at one every single turn. Sure, you can play
Yep.
red memory boost, and you can get those boosts and stuff. Some lists are playing the gravity crush because of things like ice wall. You want to get that extra memory, or just because Jesmon decks generally one of their weaknesses is getting choked because they play so little tamers. But it's like, if you're playing against Jesmon players, if you can, put them at one, because they put them at one, they got to digivolve into that champion for two. They got to digivolve into that ultimate for three. They got to digivolve into that Jesmon for three, right? They gotta
Hmm.
do things. If you put them at one, they are slow, and that's one of the things I do versus Jesmon. I'm gonna keep putting you at one or two memories, so that way when you digivolve for three, it goes to my turn, and then I'm gonna go up because I'm playing multiple memory tamers, so I'm gonna be gaining all kinds of memory, and that's another downside to Jesmon. I mean, I feel like the reason Jesmon generally bricks in general is that because you need to fit so much into the deck, right? You
Yeah.
have to play the Sister Mons, you have
Yep.
to play these like option cards. Going into the new set, you have even more option cards you want to play. These new lists are even playing more option cards because you want to tech versus things like Bond and other Jesmon lists. So you're playing things like Atomic Blaster, you're playing Gaia Force, you're playing Emergency Program Shutdown, you have red memory boosts because you need memory, you have Gravity Crush because you need memory. All of the You have option cards, you have Sister Mons. They're playing like a lot of lists are playing like 10 rookies, 10 red rookies, and then you play
That's
against the
it.
Jesmon, and it takes them like 3 turns to get a rookie in raising. And then
Right.
you're playing four, maybe you're playing like five, maybe six ultimates in your list, right? You're playing the four saviors, and then it's like if you don't hit that savior, you're in a bad. It's just the problem with Jesmon is that if it hits, it hits. If you get that Greymon Savior, Jesmon with Delicate Plan, Judgment, and Omnimon, if you get it, you win, right? There's almost
Right.
nothing that can stop you at that point, like outside of like a preemptive Ice Wall, right? And
Right.
so there's not very much that you can get it. But the thing is when you're playing 10 rookies, 8 champions, 6 ultimates, 4 megas, your ratios are whack compared to other decks that do what you do, where you're building from a rookie to a mega. They're playing like 13, 14 rookies, 15 rookies, 11 champions, 8
Right.
mega or ultimates, 6, 7 megas. Like they have these actual ratios where you can draw it. So, but in Jesmon, you have to fit these option cards. You have to fit the Sister Mons. Some people are playing like Aguni Mons for their tamers, and there's just so many things to put into the deck, and so like you only have 50 cards, and so that's where I think a lot of the bricking comes from, is that you have to fit so much into one deck, so that way you're prepared for everything. And if you change these ratios, you like lose some of that, right? If you want to go up to
Hmm.
13 rookies, you got to cut back on option cards. And if you don't have those option cards, then your security most of the time sucks. But if you
Right.
go for these option cards, so that way you can gain memory or have better security, then you're whiffing rookies all the time. Like I was playing versus Chris last night. He's playing 12 rookies in his list, which is 2 more than most lists are playing. And by rookies, I'm not counting the Blancs. I'm talking about 12 red rookies. And I think we
Right.
played 2 sets in a row. 2 sets in a row. That's 4 games because I 2-0 twice, right? And all 4 of those games, he did not digivolve a rookie on turn one.
Ooh. Oh man. Yeah, that. Yeah, see, and that's the thing about Just Mine. Like, Just Mine, yeah, sure, you can say, the new Hawkmon is coming out, but is that really going to fix the deck? I don't think so. It's going, you're going to be able to grab more Systemons
It'll
off the
help,
top.
but
Yeah, it's not going to fix the deck. Like,
yeah.
it's one of those things to where you're going to have to play some, off-brand variant of Just Mines where you go a four line of the Just Mines, you go a three line or a 3-2 line of the System Mines, but then put in more tamers, some hybrid options like the Goonie Mon. And like you have to test that out in order for Just Mon to even be relevant. And who's to say that even that's gonna work? Because Just Mon is so greedy, it wants system mons. It
Yeah.
wants its own kind in the deck. And that's the problem about, decks or archetypes that are so greedy that there's no real flexibility in their one trick ponies. Sure, they can be good. Sure, they can high roll and just have, an amazing win rate. But then you break 6 out of 10 times. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Hmm.
don't open a rookie into turn two, turn three, and now your opponent is 2, 3 turns ahead of you because of how fast they accelerated.
Hmm.
So it's almost like you're wishing for your opponent to go ahead and break just as hard as you.
And the one thing that's hard about Jesmon is because, I mean, working with Chris, we have, I think, 3, 4 Colorado players who, as of right now, are planning on bringing Jesmon to nationals, right? And I've been working with
Mhm.
them. I've also been playing a lot of other Jesmon players outside of Colorado and just people in the Discord or just in the general community that I've been working with their lists. And the thing is the question is, how do I make this more consistent, blah blah blah. And like, the more you try to put consistency cards in, the lower you go on necessary cards, right? And one of the things that
Mhm.
me and Chris kind of came to is, it's like, if you're playing cards like that draw cards, you have to play them on a rookie level, because if you try to play things that draw cards at a higher level, you just drop the consistency of the deck. So you can play things like the starter deck Guilmon, which has the inheritable. You can play the promo Guilmon, which has when attacking draw a card. You can play you play Blanc, Sistermon Blanc would on play draw a card. You have those things, but it almost just doesn't feel like enough, because even when it's like, okay, I didn't draw a rookie outside of Sistermon Blanc in my hand, so I have to play Blanc for 3 and draw. Even then, it's like you still have to pass your opponent at 3 to play like one Digimon. And even then, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a red memory boost get played, and they're just like, no rookie on board. They're playing red memory boost. They get a rookie next turn. No rookies hit because they hit 2 Sistermons, an option card, and a Bow Huckmon or whatever, you know? And it's like,
Oof.
it's just, the deck is obviously incredibly powerful, right?
Yeah.
It's probably has the most tournament wins because it has a very high ceiling. It's one of the most hated cards in Japan. They want to hit that savior, kill the deck essentially. It's very very good. It's the problem is that it's not consistently that good. Bond of
Yeah.
Friendship is very consistently the same power level, right? Like
Yeah.
your deck does one thing generally. It's like you're playing Gabumons, you're playing Tamers, and you're playing things that search for those things. And then you have like your memory gain option cards and Hammer Spark, um, memory boosts, and you have like Ice Wall and stuff like that, right? And so it's like it's very consistently the same power level. Greymon Tribal, same. It's very consistently the same power level every game. Jesmon is not the same power level every game. It's like you can draw your 5 cards, look at your hand, and be like, I'm in trouble. Or you can open your hand and be like, oh, sick, I got Rookie into Greymon into Savior and Jesmon into Delicate Plan, and that's my opening hand, you know? And you're just like,
Yeah.
great. But it's not, there's so many different things going on that's not consistent. When I play Gabumon, yeah, sometimes I open my hand and I'm like, oh, dang it, I have all these champions and this sucks. But a lot more of the times I open my hand, I'm like, okay, I have 2 Gabumons, a Tamer, a Hammer Spark, and like a Bond of Friendship, right? And then so it's like, okay, I know I'm gonna play a Gabumon, and then I'm gonna play Strabimon, and then next turn I'm gonna play Tamers, and I have these hybrids for my Tamer. It's more consistent, and I think that's where the biggest issue is between like Bond and Jesmon, is that it's not consistently the same power level because of how much you have to fit in the deck.
Yeah. I mean, still think Just Mine's top three. We both
Oh,
in agreement. We
I
still
mean,
think Just Mine's top three.
Jesmon and Bond are the top two. I think
Yeah.
that's unarguable.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
They're objectively the top two. I say all these things about Jesmon. I don't think Jesmon's a bad deck. I've played enough card games in my life where I would rather play. Let's say Jesmon is the best deck. Okay, I don't think that's personally true. I think Bond's the best deck, and you can tell I think that because I always play what I think the best deck is, and I play in Bond,
Hmm.
right? So I think Bond's the best deck. But let's say Jesmon statistically is the best deck, which a lot of people will argue for, and that's fine. I could see that and agree with that at some point. I don't want to play it because I've seen too many times where it is not the best deck, right? It is
Yeah.
too many times where it is inconsistent. And when I wanted to, as a card game player, my main thing I look for is consistency. I want something that's going to be consistent. It's going to consistently be doing the same things all the time. And that's why I like Bond. Bond is very consistent in what it does. A lot of games are kind of have the same general flowchart of what things happen. It's just the cards that you play and the stuff that you do is maybe in a little bit of different order. Maybe it takes 3 turns, but sometimes it takes 5 turns or whatever, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
very consistent. Jesmon is not consistent. Consistency is like the key word that I'm looking for. I tested a Jesmon list for like extensively for a week before I posted the video on my YouTube because me and Chris were talking about it. I was like, dude, we got to make a Jesmon list that is like as consistent as we can get it, so we can get on YouTube, so people can like, because I was seeing too many lists with like 10 rookies and like 7 champions, and I was like, okay, you got, it's very obvious why people are bricking, right? And
Yeah.
in my extensive testing with that deck, no matter what I tried, it was never consistent. It was like I could find a list where I'm just like, yes, this is what's going to be like the most consistent ratios. This is going to be this, and I would still brick like 3 out of 5 games, and it's just like when that's an option in a best of 3 tournament, I'm just not the biggest fan. I don't want to play a deck that has the chance to just brick on you at like half the time in a tournament that is very very long and is like this important.
Right. Yeah. Consistency is the name of the game, especially here in the TCG. Now, I know we're coming close to the time to wrapping up, but I just want to give you your thought. What right now, we know what the top 2 decks are, but what is the 2 decks that can actually compete against the top 2 decks and possibly even take the Nationals tournament?
So I think my answer for this will change next week, and it might even change the week after that, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when we go back into it, I didn't expect Lilith Loop to be a thing. I didn't expect these
Right.
Metal Garurumon decks to be a thing. I didn't expect, all these other aggressive decks to really be up there. So a week leading up to Nationals is a very long time for things to change. So I'll just want to put that out there right now. What I think right now might change in a week. And so if next week we talk about this and I change my answer, it's all in practice. I'm playing a lot of this game. And so once I see I'm the type of person where once I see something is true, I will change my thought process. If you prove to me something, then I'll change, right? And
Right.
because I don't want to be right. I just want the right answer. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Correct.
and so it's like Agumon and Jesmon, top 2 decks. My opinion, probably most people's opinion, no question, right? How you want to put
Yeah.
those 2 in that order, that's up to a person by person basis. I put Bond up front, and then I put Jesmon specifically for the keyword consistency that we were saying. I like consistency, so I'd put in that order. But if we're looking at 3 and 4, I got to give number 3 to Three Musketeers. Pretty much no matter what. I think right now, Three Musketeers is that deck where it's in between on consistency level. It can brick very hard because you're playing 13, like somewhere between like 12 and 14 option cards that are 7 cost, right? So you can just draw a hand that's just 7 cost option cards, and that's the thing. But the other thing is there's so much draw power in that deck, and the fact that you can play your Beal Stars for super cheap towards the mid game and be able to play whatever option card that you want. Essentially, you get to just pick and choose what you want. It's a very powerful deck. It takes the security control style element to it, but also gives you something where it's like you have mid-range aggression, so you can beat things like Jesmon and Bond and things like that. Although Three Musketeers' worst matchup is probably Bond because it is generally slow in what it does, and the defense that it has can get bottom decked and Rebellion and blockers and stuff like that, as to where Jesmon can't really get rid of those things like that. And then also they don't have many option cards to get rid of Bond. But the thing is Three Musketeers is just a deck where it's you know what you're getting into when you're playing Three Musketeers. You're gonna be playing stuff, you're gonna be trashing, and you got to be careful with what resources you do. It's a deck that very much rewards people who understand resource management and understand how to play various matchups, so you know what to get rid of, what to keep, what you need to use, what cards need to be in your hand, what cards need to be in the trash, when you should use your Beal Stars. It's a very skill intensive deck. You need to be very knowledgeable to be like do very well with the deck. And but it's just one of those things where if we're gonna go with sheer power level, it's just stronger than a lot of other decks. Being able to have
Hmm.
this very, very strong defensive backbone with all these option cards, with Gundramon, with being able to play Beelstars for like 6 memory and be able to just literally board wipe Velchformer, these things are very powerful. It just has some consistency issues. And then going into number 4, as of right now, and this one could change, I think Three Musketeers would probably stay within the top 4, maybe 5 for me for indefinitely up until Nationals. It's just one of those decks. But as of right now, at number 4, I gotta go with you. I gotta put the Agubond Greymon tribal type stuff up there. It's just the deck where when I've seen it, I've been genuinely impressed by it. It's a deck that I have been working on my own version on the side, not really to switch to for it to nationals or anything, but because it's like this deck's good. You know, I need to understand the in and outs of this deck myself to the fullest extent, or else this deck can literally come out and just take you out of nowhere. Like you'd be like, oh crap, they just go and they got 4 checks in on turn 2, and now it's like I have 1 security check and they can go to Bond next turn, or they can go into Goonimon. These decks are super powerful. It's like it's that deck where I really gotta keep control of it, and I gotta really know. So I've been working on myself. It's a deck that I'm really impressed by. But the thing is these purple decks are very, very, very good. These purple decks.
Hmm.
The thing is when I talked about last week, I said I was a big fan of the D Brigade, and I still think D Brigade is an underdog. Right? It's still a deck that is a
Yeah.
dark horse. Um, as to where the Greymon Tribal, I wouldn't really consider it a dark horse. It's just a good tier 1.5, tier 2 deck, right? And it's just one of those things where it's good, but these purple decks are just really good, and because they can beat the top 2 3 decks, which is why I gave that to D Brigade. D Brigade with its security stuff and its rookie rush style can beat Bond, and it can beat Jesmon, and it can beat Three Musketeers. Obviously, Three Musketeers it can have a little bit of trouble with because Bond or D Brigade has a little bit of trouble with Mechanorimon, but that's besides the point. These purple decks can beat Jesmon, they can beat Bond, and they can definitely beat Three Musketeers. So if you have these decks that can beat the top 3 decks, these go in slot 4, 5, 6. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so I think this Lilith Loop, these Titamon decks, I think these are the decks too that are the not top 3 decks that people are going to be seeing the most of, because this Ginkaku promote package is insane.
Yeah. I'm gonna just say this real quick. I do think Bond is number one. I do think Just Moss number two. I actually would put Lilith Loop number three right above Three Musketeers for the simple fact that the consistency aspect of Live Loop just with just the discarding and a drawing because purple can draw its butt off. I mean,
And it
as a
got it
purple
got way
player,
more draw too. BT6, it's crazy.
right? I can draw 13 cards in one turn and go through 1/4 of my deck like easily. So just having that consistency factor, like I do think it is a top three, top three deck,
I can agree with
especially with
that.
a lot of the showing. And then Three Musketeer, I'll put fourth just because I think just having a security anti-meta type of, style deck can really just, high roll its way to a easy top 16 finish. But I still would think Greymon Tribal is a dark horse in my opinion,
Yeah.
though it is getting more representation. I still think if it comes to red decks, people are going to just pick Jesmon, hand over foot, like overall when it comes to the color red. So
Hmm.
it just totally outshines it. And now I think a lot of people are starting to pick up the Greymon Tribal, but we're going to have to see when it comes, to the national scene.
Yeah, and I can agree with you. Like I said, what I think might change a week from now, the whole purple resurgence has been something that I really have only been seeing in the past 5, 6, 7 days.
Hmm.
But it's just so noticeable. It's just so many people are playing these purple decks. Not even in my testing. You look at tournaments and you go and you watch a live stream and you're just like, oh, there's another purple deck that's not Three Musketeers and stuff like that. So I definitely think go up there. Lilith Loop is a deck where it's like Jesmon, where if you hit the pieces when you need them in the order that you need them, I mean you got it right, and you have so many more
Yeah.
consistency cards now to hit those pieces where it's there, and so it's very similar to Jesmon. I don't think it has as high of a ceiling as Jesmon, where it's like if you hit the cards with Jesmon, it's literally unstoppable to beat because they just shut off all the cards that you do with piercing, and then do 5 checks into Omnimon or whatever. So it's not as high of a ceiling, but it's one of those things where it's just if you get the pieces, you can win. And the just surgence of purple decks in general is pretty high. It's something that I need, like, have been keeping in mind, that I need to be practicing as much as possible myself, because I do expect to see a lot of these in tournament, especially since I've been seeing this mostly from players in EU, and with EU's nationals being a week before NA's national, we are going to be seeing a lot of people who are going to be net decking either the full deck list or just archetypes from EU nationals. And if there's this many people playing Lilith Loop in EU, then there's going to be at least a couple who top, if not go really deep top, like top 4 finals possibly. And if that happens, then there's going to be a huge insurgence of it.
Oh yeah, just get ready for Liv to come back into the scene.
Whew, man. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but that was a very good conversation, Dante. I think we really, I think that was good to talk about the meta decks. I really think we kind of talked about a lot of what's going on, not just talking about just Bond and Jesmon, because everybody's just talking about Bond and Jesmon. But wrapping up on this, you got any last words on the meta game or just anything going on in the scene right now?
If you're playing Jesmon, just make sure you don't brick. Just get good.
Yeah, draw good. Wise words from Dante. Just get good. Well, thank you so much, everybody. That's going to go ahead and be this week's episode. We will be continuing to bring this to you all weekly, so I hope you all are enjoying. Once again, if you do have any questions you would like us to answer or any topics you would like us to go over, be sure to leave those in the comments below. We will be checking out all the comments, so whatever you type will be seen by us, and we will add that into our future plans. But with that being said, I am Primitive,
I am Dante.
and we will catch you all next week. Peace out.
Peace.